What's good, everyone? Matt here from UK Nets Fans, and I'm joined, as ever, by Aidan McConaughey and Cammy Anderson for another episode of BK to UK, the British Brooklyn Nets podcast. Today, we're going to be looking back over seeing off the Celtics, our reactions to Game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks, and our look ahead to Game 2, which is happening in a matter of hours. We'll also be answering some of your listener questions and much, much more. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at UK Nets Fans, the pod itself on Twitter at BK2UK Pod, and check us out on YouTube where you can watch all of our episodes back. We're also now streaming live on Twitch and Periscope, so find us there as well at UK Nets Fans. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. Gents, wonderful to be chatting Nets basketball with you again. Although we are fully deep into the playoffs, there have been a couple of news items that I wanted to get through, just because the NBA landscape is a never-ending sort of a news cycle. So this kind of stuff just made me laugh. Just a couple of cheeky ones just to get out of the way before we do chat Nets playoff basketball. And the first one, I noticed something come through. And I've titled this on my notes as "Chilling Like a Villain," but I've just had a look at a tweet from Chris Milholland, who has said, according to SportsInsider.com,
I think we may have lost Matt.
I believe we may have.
Let's see. I think what we'll do is we'll come out and come back in, see what's going on.
For it.
Nice one. Right, we'll be back in.
I'm going to move him and back in. Right, yeah, it's definitely away. This is where we need to have like a wee elevator music, just kind of have in the middle. But if there's anyone listening, the 18 folk already kind of tuned in, if you have any listener questions or whatever, feel free to fire them in the comments wherever you're watching. We'll try our best to answer them. Any kind of comments or whatever, just fire them in, and we'll, as I say, we'll try our best to get to them. And Matt has now officially left the StreamYard building, so hopefully he's back in a few minutes. Well, sooner than that.
Will we get started on this first topic then, just boys? So,
I mean, he did even say the full topic.
I don't know if he did. He seemed to get cut off a bit, but yeah, no, that's it. What Liam's just said. Swindon Wi-Fi, not the best, but yeah. So anyway, here's a question from Grains. Thanks very much, Grains, for tuning in. Biggest key to tonight's game? I'll let you take this one first, Cammy. On you go.
Keeping Giannis quiet. I mean, I think it'd be obvious to just kind of say have KD or Kyrie go off and obviously win the game. I think obviously that probably is the biggest key if you think of it that way. But I think the biggest key for me is keeping Giannis quiet. He had 34 points in the first game, and whilst that's not the most he's had against us this season, it's still a lot of points. But I think we did kind of deal with him quite well. So I think not just for this game, but for the whole series, it's keeping him quiet. We've seen kind of against the Celtics, it was keep Jason Tatum quiet. The Celtics kind of struggle. Yes, he went off in that one game, and hopefully Giannis doesn't quite have a 50-point game or thereabouts, and we managed to get by. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say you're pretty much spot on. I think obviously Giannis is the big one. I think how we deal with Clark's and Blake's minutes and how we stagger that is going to be really important. I think obviously Griffin played some really big minutes at the weekend. I thought all in all he done a really good job against Giannis, and it was really important that he did. I mean, we know that Giannis and Brook are going to put up big numbers against us. We just kind of got to accept that that's going to happen. Personally, I think obviously we saw. Here he goes back off. But yeah, no, just to finish off what I was saying, just obviously we know that they're going to go off. I think obviously the big factor on Saturday was the fact that the shooters for them weren't making their shots. I think they were 6 of 30 from the 3-point line. That's going to be a big one tonight again. They're not going to shoot that poorly 2 nights in a row, and I think it's going to be really important that we not only kind of match their 3-point shooting numbers, but try and stop them as much as possible, because we've seen Middleton, Connaughton, Bryn Forbes go off at least 1 point each, 1 game each during their first round. So yeah, it's going to be really important to keep those guys quiet, especially when we're not going to have Harden shooting numbers. But back to where we were before Matt left. Yeah, I think you got halfway through that topic point before you cut off there, and you were kind of stuck wide mouth. So I'll let you come back in with that one.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know what's happened to my Wi-Fi. It's obviously just gone absolutely bananas. And if it doesn't sort itself out before I need to hit up League Pass for a couple of hours in the dead of night, then I'm not going to be happy. So I was just chatting through the Nets being a villain. Is that what we're up to?
That's us. Yeah. We
That's
didn't start.
All right, cool. Well, obviously, apologies if we're covering old ground, but I'm back in the room now. I'm a little bit flustered. I'm a little bit sweaty now, but here we are. I just think it's funny, man. Like, everyone's got to be in every narrative. There's got to be like an us and a them, and it's a really strange thing. And I don't know whether or not it's because it's happened to the team you follow that all of a sudden they've got 3 top 15 players, some incredible bench depth, amazing role players. But like, how can you hate that? I don't understand what kind of goes through your mind where you do want to hate that. I get the Boston stuff with Kyrie specifically because they've got some bad blood there. And although obviously I don't agree with it, I understand it. So, I don't think there's much to be said about us being the most hated team. But I think I take it as a compliment and I wear it as a badge of honor, I think. But yeah, that's all I've got to say about that.
I mean, we never even got on to speak about that. We just started opening the room and taking questions. We were letting you think with. So I'll come in with my response to the kind of villains question, going back. And I think it ultimately comes down to just jealousy. And I know that sounds really kind of petty, going, "Oh, they're jealous." And it's like, it's not that deep, but it kind of is. And you can understand why folk will be like, "Well, they've got 3 players who are, as you say, back in the top 15. They shouldn't have them, whatever." As far as I'm concerned, we've done nothing illegal to bring these players to the team, and it's not our fault that they wanted to come here. It's not our fault James Harden forced his way here. It's not our fault KD and Kyrie wanted to play together, and it just so happened to be Brooklyn. And yeah, I mean, I think what really matters is what happens on the court, not what fans kind of off the court think at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd say 100% with the villains of the NBA, and I think like you, Matt, I've just embraced it fully and really enjoyed it this year. And as you said, you kind of do need to take it as a compliment because at the end of the day, the reason that they hate us, it sounds cheesy, but they hate us because they ain't us, isn't it? Because we are the best team kind of talent-wise in the NBA. And they do hate us for that reason. And they can try and use that, the Nets bought a title cover-up reason, which is a load of rubbish because it's the NBA. And each team has a player that's earning millions and millions each year. So everyone's technically trying to buy a title. Why wouldn't you? That's the whole point of the league. But yeah, no, I think the Nets need to start embracing it as well, especially next season if we do well this year. And I know they play the kind of Darth Vader music over the opposing team when they come out. I'd love if they turned the head on that and started playing it when the Nets came out. It'd be great. Obviously, I heard Joe Tsai talking about renaming the arena. He says it's not going to happen. But I'd all be for if they change it to the Death Star. I think that'd be absolutely crazy. But exactly. But yeah, no, in terms of Kyrie, again, you just need to put it down to the toxic mainstream media at the end of the day. Nets fans absolutely love this guy, and everyone within our bubble loves that guy, and that's the main thing. And they can say what they want, but he's continuing to prove people wrong every week.
Yeah, he's some guy, but yeah, it's just funny, isn't it? Like I said, sort of someone has said in before that the Nets are now a fully operational Death Star, which I think would fit with the Star Wars music. But yeah, I'm all over it. One other piece of news. Actually, no. One thing I was going to say about before we do move on is about super teams and stuff like that, where you get fans of opposing teams saying that it's unfair that we built this roster. And then this week you see people saying free Dame Lillard, and they've got like him in like a jersey swap with like LeBron and AD. And it's just like, hang on a minute. Like, how is that fine? But it is what it is. But yeah, just no one hates you if you're not doing anything. So we're obviously making moves towards that Larry O'Brien. So, it's all good. Another nugget of information that I saw this morning was from, what's it called? silverscreenandroll.com, which is essentially the Lakers version of Nets Daily. And the headline reads this: the Lakers reportedly looked into a Kyle Kuzma for Spencer Dinwiddie trade earlier this season. Obviously, there's a couple bit more details to that, but guys, what were your initial thoughts when you heard that?
You can tell that the Lakers are in off-season mode when there's stories like this coming out already. And that's what when the team are in Cancun, that's what their media are doing, rolling up stories like that, which I personally could not believe at all. I mean, for me, I'm not interested in Kuzma. I mean, he can have good games and stuff like that, but I just don't feel like he would fit in this Nets system at all. And obviously, the Nets are obviously well over the cap already, and I think a sign and trade for Dinwiddie, I mean, I'm not a cap expert at all, but I know that it does put in the hard cap if you do a sign and trade, and it would make other moves even more difficult. And personally, I don't know about you guys, I just think the boat's probably sailed now for a Dinwiddie move. He's looking like he's probably going to be going for nothing, and we've just got to accept that that's life, and we can be thankful for what he's done for the Nets over the years and just move on from it. I mean, you can't get something for every single player. It just doesn't happen. And I mean, if they were going to make a move for him, it was probably going to be at the deadline that had passed, and that seems like that was probably going to be the best time where they could have done something. And at the end of the day, they decided not to. Maybe there wasn't moves out there, but that seemed like the more obvious time to move him. If they were sure at that time that he wasn't going to come back, I'm not sure how confident they were that there was a chance that he was going to come back at some point. I personally think they probably wrote him off quite a long time ago now from the stuff that's coming out. And there was quite an interesting piece of a nugget of information, as you said earlier, Matt, about Dinwiddie, where Net Income in the Nets Daily comments said that from Nash's comments, potentially there is a bit of bad blood there between Dinwiddie and the Nets. Net Income certainly doesn't put things without knowing information, and potentially that is the case, that there is something there. Always seems to be contrasting each other, them saying, yeah, the quickest comeback in history, and the Nets saying otherwise. So yeah, I don't expect to see Spencer back now. I was kind of toning through him kind of throughout the season as if he would, but no, I don't think he will now, and I think there's certainly a good chance that he'll be just going in free agency and signing for someone else.
As much as I'd like to hope that we could maybe get a signing trade just to get something for him, I think you are spot on, Aidan, that he is going to be walking. I'd seen him linked with the Knicks. I think they were going to try and target him, and if he goes to the Knicks, fair play to him, he's going to get the starting role there probably. And I think that's what we all really want for Spence. He wasn't going to start ahead of any of our, James Harden being the point guard, Kyrie now the shooting guard, but also previously a starting point guard. So we knew he wasn't going to start there. As for Kuzma, but the only thing Kuzma has going for him is his fashion sense, quite a groovy guy, but on the court, not for me. I just don't see why we'd shell out so much for him to not start. He certainly wouldn't start ahead of KD. I wouldn't have him ahead of Joe Harris or Jeff Green either, provided we obviously keep Jeff Green. So, yeah, I mean, the numbers, I think Kuzma beats Dinwiddie in points per game and rebounds per game, and Dinwiddie beats him in assists per game over the course of their respective careers. But I mean, I guess for the better rebounds and the worse assists, you can put that down to the fact Kuzma's a front court player, Dinwiddie's a back court player. That's kind of how that kind of works. But yeah, Kuzma not for me. Who I'd kind of want if we could somehow pull off a sign and trade for Dinwiddie, I'm not sure. You'd imagine it maybe be another kind of sign and trade piece somewhere around the league, so teams are kind of mutually kind of benefiting there. But yeah, I think it's just time we let the kind of Spence ship sail, and if it's just kind of over the water to MSG, so be it. He's going to be there, and we can it's just I don't know what to say. It's kind of sad, but
be awful.
I'd seen it, but I do hope that that's not the case, because as you say, if the bad blood's there, it might make for a bit awkward kind of when we're playing each other. But you know what, I'm all for it at the same time. We'd quite love to steal one of the best Knicks players and rub it in their face. Not that Spence is one of our best players, but you know what I mean. So yeah, I think if we can do a sign and trade, it'd be magnificent, but I can't actually see that happening.
Yeah, I've seen some bits linking Spencer to Dallas as well. Obviously, they've need to be putting some more bits and bobs around Luka Doncic, but with Luka having the ball in his hands so much, I don't see, unless they will bring in Spencer off the bench, that might make sense. But then, you know, from what I can gather, is he's kind of really keen to be like the starting point guard and really, really lead a team. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what the best fit for Spencer is. But I certainly wouldn't want to get Kyle Kuzma back in return for him if it's going to cut his. We'll see. I want to get the right money on this, but
the contracts aren't actually too dissimilar. Kuzma's a little bit more, but then it's I don't know. I think it's 13 or 14 million Kuzma's. I don't know if I want to pay that for someone with his kind of numbers. I'm saying I don't know. I definitely don't want to pay that for someone with his kind of numbers, especially considering our success with like your Jeff Greens and your Bruce Browns just coming in and doing jobs for pennies, really. So yeah, I'd much rather avoid Kuzma.
Yeah, he's where is it? So he got paid according to the piece in Silver Screen and Roll. He begins a 3-year, 39 million contract next season. So that's average 12.5 million a year for the next 3 years. Yeah, you don't really want to be paying him that. But yeah, just covering the same ground as you guys say. But the only thing I would say is it gives us more. It would give us more in the front court, which we saw he plays with in the front court. But yeah, he doesn't give us a ton of size. He doesn't really give you a ton of anything apart from sort of Instagram likes, I guess, for the gopping stuff that he wears. Yeah, who's right? Liam has come in the chat. Hard cap wouldn't be ideal in a sign and trade from Kuzma. Let Kuzma stay in LA and on Instagram. I do want stuff. And Liam Halsey has also said, as the UK's only Dallas fan, we don't want him in Dallas. No offense. It's like, okay, fair dues. More for you, Spencer over Luca any day. Not really. But yeah, so that's the off-court bits that we've spotted through the season. Unless there's anything else we wanted to touch on, I know there's a couple of other stories that we wanted to get through, but we've decided to steer those ones in terms of who's dating who and potentially not going on, that kind of stuff. But we'll leave that for another day.
For next after dark.
Absolutely. So the takes us back to the game recaps. So we are recording as it stands on Monday. We're a couple of hours away from game 2 in the Bucks Nets series, but we're going to take it all the way back to Wednesday on a game 5 win. The Nets took the game 123-109 against the Celtics. And Cammy, you wanted to start on just our efficiency. It was a pretty good team performance.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm saying just for this game, I think it goes for the whole course of this series against the Celtics. This was massively efficient basketball from the Nets. I've kind of got the numbers just up here. This was the most efficient offense in NBA playoff history, with us having an offensive rating of 128 points per 100 possessions over the course of the 5-game series, which is just mental. I think the previous best was 126 for the Cavs a few seasons ago. And yeah, 128 points offensive rating is mad, and it's amazing that we've managed to witness that. And then kind of more game 5 stats, we were 51.2% from the field, 46% from free, and we were high up in terms of free throw percentage as well. I think it was about 87 or 88. We only missed 1 or 2. Average just shy of 50% from the field in the series, 42% from free, and when you're kind of shooting like that, you're going to win a lot of games. Consistency is key, and it's even more important in the playoffs when every point counts, every possession counts that bit more. So yeah, long may that continue. I had a wee look at the numbers. We kind of statted the Celtics in every stat other than blocks per game and turnovers. Obviously, turnovers is a negative stat, so probably better that we didn't beat them in that one. But even the blocks, there was only a few kind of, it was only like 1.5 maybe difference. So it wasn't even anything major. So, I mean, the fact that we managed to pretty much obliterate them in every single stat line and just be so efficient over the course of the series, I think deserves to be praised a great deal.
Yeah, it's just mad that, I don't know about you guys, but this kind of game in general feels ages ago, and I don't know if it's just because it was the end of the series and we've already started the Bucks one, but for me, it feels ages ago, and I'm still a bit bitter that it had to go to 5 games rather than 4, and it messed up our podcast plans anyway, with kind of ending the series on Monday. But yeah, I mean, I did really enjoy watching Game 5, and I don't know about you guys, but I felt like we just went into it expecting a win, and I think the Nets did as well. The Celtics looked like they were ready to kind of throw in the white flag after the Game 4. But in terms of this one, I just think it was a good opportunity for guys to gel again. And I mentioned it last week. I think it hasn't been justified, it hasn't been talked about enough, should I say, how important it is for our role players to adjust to their new roles, funnily enough, just as much as it is for Scary Hours obviously to click. And I think in this game in particular, I was really impressed with 2 guys who in my books have been excellent all season. They've been the X factor all year, but they just showed that they were ready to be part of the playoff rotation. That was Bruce Brown and Nick Claxton. I mean, stat-wise, Brown gave kind of Brooklyn really good minutes. He was on both ends. He obviously had 10 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists in 24 minutes. While Nick was really good as well, especially in the fourth quarter. He finished with only 6 points on 3 of 7 shooting, and then you have 4 rebounds and a block in only 12 minutes. But to be honest, that's kind of my point. The stats don't jump off the page, but that's what these guys are. They're guys that don't need to show up in the stat sheet to have an impact in the game. And due to their defensive abilities, which I'm still standing by the fact that both of them, if they played more minutes, could be in the defensive teams of the year, because I think they've been excellent. I mean, we knew that Bruce was going to be brilliant when he came to the Nets on the defensive end, because that's what he was kind of given as a defensive dog. But I just think he's been absolutely incredible, and I think it's sometimes been overshadowed by his offensive stuff, which has been quite a nice surprise as well. But yeah, in this one, I thought both of them were just extremely active, aggressive, switching really well, which is what we need. And especially with what's went down kind of injury-wise, I think they're going to be really, really important in this series. And if we can get more of what they did in that game, especially, it's going to be so crucial for them to come in and do the dirty work. And yeah, it's really nice that these guys are stepping up their game, because obviously Clax is in his rookie. I was about to say he's in his rookie year. He's not really. He still feels like he is. He's in his second year. Bruce has obviously only played a couple of playoff games with the Pistons. So they're relatively novices in the playoff department, but they look like they've been playing in it for years, and it's an absolute delight to watch them play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you say, like we're going to get onto it a little bit later on in the pod, because someone's asking about home court advantage, but yeah, it's like you say, it's been an absolute joy to see these guys step up with that kind of next man up mentality. But talking about a joy playing, joys watching play basketball, James Harden just again, he's got that same sort of thing where KD just casually drops 35, 40 points. James Harden had the most casual of 30-point triple doubles you've ever seen. So in a shade under 40 minutes, he scored 34 points, had 10 assists, 10 rebounds, one of which was an offensive rebound. He had 2 steals and 2 blocks, only had 1 turnover, shot basically 59% from the field, 57% from 3, going 4 and 7, and 90% from the free throw line. He was an absolute man possessed, and like we've waxed lyrical about it so much on this podcast, every single episode it seems like. But James Harden just makes his teammates so much better. Like just getting around the court around him, like the passes that he picks out are always correct. The way he takes care of the ball, he's underrated on defense as well. Like the way he can kind of put his not insignificant frame in front of people when they're trying to bang down low. It was just a joy to watch, which unfortunately, bringing us on to the next game was particularly bad. And Salonbas on Twitch has just said, hopefully he'll be fit again for game 3, has alluded to it. What was it? Let me get the exact seconds right. 43 seconds into game 1 against the Milwaukee Bucks, a game in which I think pretty much you didn't even have to be a Nets or a Bucks fan to be excited about this game. Everyone was kind of saying whoever kind of wins this is going to be the coming out the East and all this kind of stuff. The fanfare seems to have kind of gone away from Philly, who were, the number 1 seed all season. So it's a bit strange. It seems that this has been the series to watch, and everyone was bang up for it. Giannis and James Harden obviously have had their differences in years gone by. So it was going to be a tasty series, but we've been robbed of it so far. So after 43 seconds, James Harden pulls up, non-contact injury, right hamstring, just walks off straight down the tunnel. Fortunately, he did run off, walk it off really, and reportedly he was on an exercise bike or a treadmill while the game was still going on. So that kind of sounds good, but he missed game 1, and we've just had it confirmed that he's going to miss today's game 2 in what has been diagnosed as tightness in his right hamstring. So he left the Barclays Centre before the game had even finished to get an MRI, which I guess has come back fine. But there's been a lot of speculation as to whether or not this was going to be day to day, whether or not he was going to be out for the rest of the series or out for the rest of the playoffs. So now he's come back as day to day. I think that's good news. What do you guys make of what do you guys make of Harden missing the games 1 and 2 at least, and his outlook going into the rest of the series?
Yeah, I think it's the best news possible. That, I mean, it was absolutely gutting to see him go down like that, and we've obviously seen that before when he came back. The last time, obviously, we knew he had a hamstring tightness before that in the season when he did go down the Rockets game. I want to say, I think he came off in the Rockets game in the season with the same thing after a minute or so. And yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's one of those things where we felt that we're finally healthy, and we just think this type of thing wouldn't happen in the playoffs for us. So it was a bit of a shock. And to be honest, I thought he was done. I thought he was done for the season. I didn't want to say it, but I thought he was done. So when I saw that get announced yesterday, I was absolutely delighted. I think that's the best news possible. And it sounds like, I mean, I watched some doctor breaking it down today on YouTube, like some saddle, but he said that he should be back at some point in the series, and he's a doctor. So that's the main thing for that one. But I'll let you jump in just about the Harden news, Cammy, before we move on to the game.
So yeah, I mean, it was obviously the kind of best case scenario. I think you could say when all the kind of tweets were kind of what could it be. A lot of the diagnoses that your Twitter doctors were given, and just people who'd looked up what is a hamstring strain, what is this, what is that, they weren't looking very good. And I think in the Discord we were all like, right, that's us probably without Harden at least for the rest of the series, if not the remainder of the playoffs. And there was a bit of panic, but the fact that it's day to day is huge. If he misses this one, we've already seen that we can beat the Bucks without him. He done quite literally nothing in that 43 seconds. So it wasn't like we had some mad point streak from him or something that helped us to that win. He was barely on the court, and we still managed to come away with the win against a team who caused us problems only a few weeks ago. And I think this was a game where things could have really kind of crumbled. That could have been an injury that would have derailed the team very easily when you lose one of your star players. But then at the same time, we have KD and Kyrie as well there to kind of, I'm saying, fall back on. But you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's like it's not bad if you've lost one and you've still got those two, whereas many teams will lose their star, and that's them kind of thing. Like, you imagine Trae Young goes down for the Hawks. That's kind of them. They've not got a player over that level as good as your Clint Capella and your John Collins kind of You're not getting that same production out of them as you would from a Trae Young. So the fact that his day-to-day is huge, hopefully back for game 3, if not game 4. We know the Nets are very cautious, so it's probably going to be the case to keep him out for game 3 as well, back game 4. Minutes restriction, perhaps, and then hopefully he's then all good and firing for hopefully the Eastern Conference Finals if we make it.
Yeah, should be good. Another question has come in the chat. Thanks for everyone coming through. It's nice and lively in there today. If you win game 2, would you rest him for game 3 as well to try and stop this happening again? I'll jump in on this one first and say it would depend what he looks like. I think if we win game 2, I think you could rest him. Depends in the manner of if we just scrape it with him, without him, then maybe you would put him back in. But I'd leave that up to. I'm going to sit on the fence on that one. I don't know about you guys.
I'll leave it to Steve Nash and the gang. I don't think that's a decision for me to really make. As you say, if we maybe struggle in the second game or lose it, I think you've kind of got to play Harden. If he's available for game 3, you can't afford to fall 2-1 behind in the series. It also makes it difficult. And if we manage to go 2-0 up, fantastic. And if Harden can play in game 3, personally, I'd have him back in. Let's go and try and get the sweep. Let's be positive.
I think it's a good question, Liam. I think I bet you that's what the coaching staff are thinking at the moment. If they win game 2, they'll be considering keeping him out. I mean, they'll certainly have a different mentality going into Milwaukee if they're 2-0 up rather than being 1-1, because we go 1-1 and then we drop those 2 games in Milwaukee without Harden, then it's a difficult road back. But yeah, I certainly think it could be playing on their mind. But personally, we kept Harden out for 2 months and he's came back and he's tweaked his hamstring again. we can't judge the time frame. It's the playoffs now. He has to play. Every game's must win. It doesn't matter if you win. You just need to win 4 games. That's how important it is. It doesn't matter which 4 games, as long as you win 4 games. And yeah, I don't like this idea of them potentially keeping him out just because of the score at the time, because we know how quickly it can change. We've seen it in the Dallas versus Clippers series, that how quickly a game can change. And yeah, I'd just rather, if there's any chance that he can play and he gets signed off by the medical staff, which we all know could be quite difficult because we know what they're like. But yeah, if there's any chance he can play, they have to play him, because it's now or never, really.
No, yeah, that's a really good point. It's just like, save him for what? Like, yeah. It's the playoffs. Like, yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because the whole run up to this series was like, in the 2 losses we had against the Bucks at the end of the season, Harden wasn't playing. So having Harden back, that almost, it gives the team like I don't know if it's like a psychological edge or whatever, but yeah, it gives them some sort of thing to kind of add that sort of bit of unknown. But yeah, like I say, and like you quite rightly say, I just play the guy. Like, I think another way to do it is if we end up sweeping them, that's another couple of days off you've got before you play whoever wins out of the Hawks and Philly. So yeah, if he's good to go, he's good to go. Time to put some money behind the times we said that if this is the playoffs, they'd be playing. So we'll see if that mentality actually comes through. But another thing, actually, I just want to jump back to the Boston game. Actually, just quickly, I got a little bit carried away. But I know this is a Nets pod, but I do somewhat revel in the sort of destruction and the collapse of the Boston Celtics. Did the Nets make the Celtics blow up? Danny Ainge is gone. Brad Stevens has gone into the front office. Celtics are looking for a head coach. Are we reading too much into that, or have we, did we put the hammer down?
I think it probably would have happened regardless if it was us or another team that put them out in the first round. Brad Stevens has been there, a few seasons now. And yeah, maybe the move makes sense. I'd imagine it's, given how quickly it was all done, it's probably something that was already discussed. Literally, as soon as it was out, it was, right, Ainge is out, Stevens into the kind of front office. It was all very, very quickly done. So I don't know if it was just a case of, regardless of what happens, we'll just move you. Maybe it's Brad Stevens wanting it, opposed to the Celtics saying, no, you can't be the head coach anymore. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it personally.
Yeah, I think Stevens probably had one eye on the front office before the series even started. I mean, I think he was in some conference beforehand talking about the series, and he pretty much said that it's near impossible for the Celtics to beat the Nets. And it's a horrible attitude to have as a head coach, which makes me think that they were already throwing the towel in before it even began. And yeah, in terms of Danny Ainge, obviously the stuff that's came out about him recently about after the Kyries stuff, saying like, yeah, I've never heard of the racism like with players, when his own player Marcus Smart came out and said that there was. It might have had something to do with it as well. I think there's probably some words that have been had there, and the fact that he's rumoured to be going to Utah is potentially the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. But at the end of the day, I'm quite happy to co-sign on what you're saying, Matt, that the Nets blew up the Celtics purely because it's really, really funny.
Nice. Yeah, we rattled them. We completely disrupted it. Lucky isn't so lucky anymore with his black-eyed leprechaun on the roster, on the court. But anyway, enough of the Celtics. This is a Nets podcast, and we've touched on a little bit of game 1, which was still, even though we had some early drama in this one, it was still a really, really entertaining game, and entertaining because of some surprise, a surprise performance from a certain Mr. Blake Griffin. Cammy, I thought you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, so I think you could probably say this is the best performance Blake Griffin's had in a Nets uniform. 18 points, 14 rebounds, and I think a few assists in there as well, a few blocks, and you really can't argue with the performance that Blake put in. Absolutely sensational. Yes, Giannis scored 34 points, not all on Blake, but not many folk are going to stop Giannis, so you can't really blame Blake for that. But I did like how Blake did defend. Twitter was quite interesting during the game. There were so many people praising Blake, and he's doing a great job on Giannis. He's stopping him, doing this. And then you had the other half of Twitter, obviously the folk who think Nets are the villains, going, Giannis is absolutely cooking Blake. Blake's done. Blake's dusted. He's getting ruined. And it's like, I personally don't think there was any point in the game, barring maybe one or two when Giannis drove to the basket, where I went, oh dear, Blake's been absolutely done in there. Like, I felt he more than held his own for large parts. It was a usual kind of typical gritty performance that we've come to love and know from Blake. And I mean, if he manages to keep this up against Giannis, we really can't complain. The fact that Blake also kind of stepped up when Harden went off. I'd seen, I can't remember what kind of Nets site it was on. It kind of described it as the Nets had lost one star in Harden, but it wasn't like they'd kind of lost 3 stars because Blake Griffin stepped up and he was kind of like Clippers Blake again. It was like a vintage Blake performance. Maybe not dropping 30 points and tons of dunks, but still 18 points, 14 rebounds. Phenomenal as far as I'm concerned, and long may that continue against Giannis, who definitely wasn't at his best in game 1.
I think the Brooklyn Buzz boys were talking about Blake, and they'd said that was probably his best game in 2 years, and it probably was, because he didn't have a good year in Detroit last year with all his injury issues, and yeah, he's played a good factor for the Nets, but he won that game the other night. I'd go as far as saying that. I think in terms of when you give someone the job of defending Giannis, you've got to think, right, Giannis is going to get 25, 30 points at the end of the day, and you just need to go in there and piss him off. That's literally the only role of someone who's defending Giannis. I thought he'd done it perfectly, and yeah, long may that continue, as Cammy says, because he played it perfectly. But I just wanted to hop back on to what Cammy was saying earlier about obviously Harden going down and KD and Kyrie stepping up, and I think they've done a great job in this one. And we've said it many times this year in terms of when one of the big three go down, more than less, the other two tend to step up and get the job done. And that is the beauty of having 3 stars, because it's insurance almost that you've still got a confidence level there when one of the guys isn't available. So yeah, they certainly done that in this one. And I'll start with Kyrie. I mean, this is one for the people who actually watch basketball and don't check the stat sheet at the end of the game. Because if you look at the stat sheet, Kyrie did not have a good game. But if you actually use the eye test and watch the game, that was one of the best games that Kyrie's had for the Brooklyn Nets. And I just thought he was incredible. Some of the plays, just in general, he was fantastic, but some of the plays were incredible. I mean, that reverse under the basket was absolutely flawless. And again, to shout out the guys at the Brooklyn Buzz, they said it's one of those plays where he makes it look so easy that you should be able to go down. It looks like you should be able to go down and just do it yourself. And it was he described it perfectly. But yeah, he even had JayZ out of his seat, which I really liked, that JayZ still gets excited and steps up at stuff like that, which is great. But just really impressed with his effort defensively. He had a great block. I think it was on either Giannis or Lopez, which was really cool. And yeah, just some of his playmaking, obviously, with Harden being out, had some really lovely passes to KD and Shamet for a couple of highlight plays. And yeah, it's just great to see him playing such good basketball at the highest level. So, and then KD, I mean, I don't need to say too much about that. KD is KD, and it's as easy as that. I mean, obviously, PJ Tucker had the role of marking KD, and it was kind of built up a bit that he was going to make life really difficult, because he has, fair play to PJ, he has made life difficult for the Stars over the years. But KD was like, he played like he wasn't there at times. And yeah, I think especially when James went down early, we really needed a night like that from KD. And yeah, some just really beautiful shooting. And yeah, just his mid-range was just incredible, especially one over Giannis at one point, which I was just really impressed with. But I will shout out, KD's highlight of the night was not on the court. And I don't know if you guys saw it, but in his post-game interview, when Stefan Bondi decided to turn up and he questioned him about Harden's health, and he just completely shut him down. He said, I've not spoke to James, but if I did, certainly I wouldn't be telling you, Stefan. And it was just perfect. It was just like, because there's obviously no one in the media room, there was just complete silence afterwards. He was just staring down at the Zoom camera, which I just thought was incredible. So nice to knock down one of the media creeps and see them getting absolutely destroyed. I think I put Bondi in the same category as Nick Wright. It's just a waste of space. But yeah, that's what I took away from that one. I was absolutely delighted to see that KD has the same hatred for Bondi as me.
Shots fired from Aiden. I love that. Yeah, it's funny. It's just like, well, we can either, not send our stars to media sessions so we get fined 50 grand, or where they can go and they'll just slag you off. So, it's pick your poison on and off the court. No one is safe from scary hours. But yeah, I think it was just an incredible game. What you were saying about the Kyrie to KD highlights, the one where he was just behind his head to KD was just special stuff. And it definitely feels like through the Celtics game, the Celtics series, and this first game against the Bucks, it definitely feels like the Nets have, if we were going through the regular season in third gear, we've probably slipped it into fourth now. I still think there's somewhere to go to kind of, because we're still having those sort of dodgy third quarters or whatever, or starting a bit slowly. But I think there's still a ways to go to be a super efficient offense, which is crazy if you say it, like you were saying, Cammy, about like that historical sort of offensive performance that we've been having. It's crazy to think that there's still room for improvement, but I really think there is. Now that obviously James Harden isn't going to be here for an undisclosed amount of time, that does change it. But it's good to see that everyone from KD down to Reggie Perry all kind of raised their game, which is just great to see, and just really cool. And I can't wait for the rest of the series. I can't wait for game 2. Taking us on to listener questions. These are both from the UK Nets fan Discord server. So if you're a Nets fan in UK, drop me a DM and I'll get you an invite into the server where you can have a group chat with, getting on 50 other Nets fans. So it's really cool. We chat Nets 7 days a week, as well as other stupid bits and bobs. But Sam says, with perimeter shooting so prominent in today's game, meaning simply hitting a hot streak from 3 can dominate, is home court advantage actually as important as it once was? Who wants to take that one first?
I'll take this one first. And I think home court advantage is always important. Yes, teams can go on streaks, and the 3-point game is kind of revolutionised modern day basketball, as has rightly been said. Hit a few threes and you can really kind of fly away from a team. But I think home court advantage can always help, especially now with the fans back in the stands. The Barclays Centre has been absolutely rocking throughout the playoffs, and you just see some of the videos and it just gives you goosebumps just seeing kind of the near enough full Barclays Centre. Most of the crowd are fully vaccinated, so it almost kind of feels a bit normal again. So that gives you a bit of a fuzzy feeling inside. And yeah, just the noise that's been made, some of the celebrations on big plays have been fantastic. And that you just know the players feed off that. That will help them give an extra 5 or 10% when needed. And that's what you need in the playoffs. You need to be able to dig in, and when times get tough, the fans can be there and help you, kind of cheer you on. And the Nets fans have certainly been very positive when we've been at home. And yeah, I think as much as streaks can obviously derail a team and help a team out in a game, home court advantage is certainly something that can't be overlooked.
Yeah, really good question from Sam, who always seems to have really good questions. So thanks very much, Sam. But yeah, I've actually changed my mind on home court advantage. I was talking a couple of weeks ago and I was saying that I didn't think it mattered at all. But yeah, definitely changed my mind and willing to put my hands up on that one. And I think it's probably down to the fact that it's been so long since I've seen fans in the arena and kind of forgotten what it was like at times. And you do think back to like that Philly series that we had a couple of years ago, and it was absolutely rocking. And we've seen that again, if not more. And it's beautiful to see. And yeah, I would say it definitely gives a big boost. And yeah, I know obviously that game one you mentioned about hot streaks from 3, the Bucks didn't shot really poorly. Would they have done that at home? Probably not. And the Nets sometimes just get that extra boost from the fans going crazy. And you do see guys like Joe, and I know we've not seen it from Shamit yet, but I'm sure they'll step up their game, especially with Harden being out tonight. But yeah, it is a huge boost. And I think you put it really well there, Cammy. It is really nice to see, just to kind of go off topic of it, it's so nice to see fans back in the arena sitting next to each other going mental, because you know what it's like, guys. Like, you have a day where, personally, I'm still working from home. You go to the supermarket wearing a mask, and the fact that you can come back and sit on your sofa and see an arena like that, it does give you a huge boost. And yeah, it's been so great to see. And shout out to the Brooklyn Brigade, who have been just incredible as always. Bobby and the guys there have just been insane, and they always step up their game throughout the season. But yeah, we've certainly heard them a bit more during the playoffs. So yeah, definitely giving the guys a huge boost. And they've mentioned it plenty of times that it is really special for them to have fans in there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, you can even just feel it through the TV that the place is popping off and going crazy. So yeah, I'm very, 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 very jealous of all the people that can go there and grab playoff tickets. But I think I'm a big believer in, I think that it's called reverting to the mean, where like your season percentages are there for a reason, and you can get the odd hot streak. So teams coming off from going on like a big run or whatever, but you can have the odd game where you can kind of go crazy and sort of play above your normal, but it always kind of comes crashing down sooner or later, and that's another one of the big reasons why I'm so confident in a fully healthy Nets team being able to beat anyone over 7 games, because we've just got that. Our floor is so high. Over 7 games, it's just going to be tough to beat us. Bringing it back to Sam's question, it's what they say with home court advantage is that it's your role players that benefit from playing at home. So KD, Kyrie, James Harden, Giannis, they can always go and get what they need to get wherever they are. Doesn't matter if they're playing on the moon, they'll get theirs. Once you start getting down the rotation, that's when the familiarity of home court and the home fans and the home locker room and the home lights, all this kind of stuff, that's where it starts really paying dividends. And where the Nets have got such a talented roster, we've got so many good role players who can get hot. You're talking about Joe Harris, you're talking about Landry Shamet, as you've said, who's, dunking on people now. Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, Mike James, Tyler Johnson, all these people that can, get hot when they need to. Having that home court is really, really valuable. So it's a massive yes from me. It's really, really cool. I think you can see, I don't know if it's a fair comparison because I haven't really looked into the numbers, but you can see it from last year's playoffs in the bubble, where if you're a team like Miami who could just really, really lock in and be laser focused with no fans and just be about that kind of team ethos that they've got over there. Once you inject the fans back into there and traveling all around the place, then it gets a little bit different. But yeah, I still think it's huge. But it's one of those ones I'd be very interested to see what everyone else has to say. But really, yeah, really, really good question. As you say, Aiden, yeah, Sammy coming through with the killer questions. I love it. Next question is from Elliot from Hoopin' and Luton, who asks the simple question: who replaces Harden as a starter? Do we put Mike James in based on game 1? So Ellie's right. Mike James came in, and I thought you kind of covered it off, but Mike James looked really good. I'd be happy if that carried on. What do you guys think?
Yeah, another good question. I mean, I'm really interested to see what the Nets actually do here, and I think it's a great point on Mike James. I think the lack of DiVincenzo in their lineup does give you that option where you could put a Mike James in there for facilitating reasons, but at the same time, and this is what I think Nash will do, is he'll put Bruce Brown in there just for the added defense. And I don't think, obviously, Harden's not the best defender in the world. I think he is underrated. I think he's a good defender. But in terms of kind of rebounding and things like that, Bruce Brown is good at that and he can get in the right positions. So I think they will go down that option, especially when there's not going to be the scoring numbers from Harden in there. You would rather kind of stop some scoring by bringing a Bruce Brown in there defensively. But yeah, I saw a really good Nets Daily comment earlier, and I wish I wrote down who it was because you do get some really good nuggets in there. But yeah, one of the users said that they expect that Bud will expect Nash to go with Brown, and he's probably prepping for Bruce Brown to play tonight. And just from what he's done when Harden was out injured. But so if they did throw in a Mike James, that could be a surprise, and maybe they might think they might do something like that, which would be quite cool, because we obviously saw how much of a problem he was for the Bucks on Saturday. I thought he was excellent. I felt like every time he had the ball, he was going to do something incredible, and it's nice to see a guy like that step up. And it's kind of similar to Bogdanovic for the Hawks the other night, where that Euro League confidence of being one of the best players does transport over to the big games, which is a huge boost. So I certainly think that probably on Sunday or Monday, the Bucks did prepare for Mike James, which they probably didn't do beforehand, obviously because they weren't expecting to play because of Harden. But they'll certainly have him in his report because he is really dangerous. He's just so fast and he can change the tempo of the game really well. Not to the level of James Harden, but he is similar in the way that he can do that with his game, where he can ball handle wonderfully and change the tempo of the game. But so yeah, I'd still expect him to see 25 plus minutes. But yeah, I think that Nash will go for Bruce Brown to start with, just out of familiarity more than anything, because it's not a game where you want to change things too much.
I wouldn't be opposed to seeing Mike James start. I think, as Aidan puts it, Bruce Brown for the added defence makes a lot more sense. But certainly James is half hour on the court, 12-7 and 3, far from the worst kind of night. And I think if, as a role player, he can kind of put those numbers up each and every night. Obviously, if he's in starting, you could maybe expect him maybe hit about 35. If he can kind of hit 15 points, about 10 assists or whatever a night, I think you'd be quite happy with that. I think I'm going to kind of put a lot of pressure on Mike James's shoulders. I doubt he's listening, but in case you are, Mike, I'm sorry. But this is his time to step up. We brought him in and he was kind of seen as the EuroLeague MVP, kind of one of those best EuroLeague players, Euro Kyrie, I think he was described as. And yeah, I think if we're wanting to see the real Mike James, that time has to be now. He's obviously only under contract until the end of the season, so he's got a lot to play for. If he wants to be part of a potential dynasty here in Brooklyn, he's going to want to perform to get himself a new deal. Failing that, at least a deal elsewhere somewhere in the league. And yeah, I think some of the ball movement in game one was absolutely superb. Mike James, I know EuroLeague is a lot more kind of team focused, whether Mike James been on the court for a lot of these plays where pretty much everyone was touching it, passing up open shots and just slinging it round, and Bucks could do nothing to stop it. And that was just really enjoyable to watch. So I think Mike James starting could potentially be a bit of a curveball from Nash. Maybe something to try out. If it doesn't work kind of initially, throw Bruce Brown in. And then obviously if we started Bruce Brown and it wasn't quite working, go for Mike James. It's quite I'd say a bit of a flexible position for us. We'll get plenty of scoring from elsewhere. Maybe not as much defence, but then if we need the scoring, Mike James is there. If we need the defence, Bruce Brown's there. So certainly something to keep an eye on so long as Harden's out. Maybe see some surprises in that role.
Yeah, nice. I think if it's not Mike James, it's Bruce Brown or it's Tyler Johnson, right? I was really surprised that Mike James got the nod so early. I even made a stupid joke where I was just like watching the pregame and you see Mike James kind of warming up, and I was like, it's just funny in it because he's probably going to average 8 minutes for the entire series, but more fool me. He came in and he gave us half an hour of really, really good basketball. So it's just a funny one. It's strange. I'm just trying to figure out why they wouldn't have gone with Tyler Johnson. It's probably the playmaking. I guess Tyler Johnson's more of a point guard, shooting guard, isn't he? Rather than Mike James, who can literally just take the game by the scruff of the neck and attack the basket and get other people involved, like you say. So that was a shocker, but yeah, I expect it to be Mike James, not much like you guys to do as well. But yeah, honorable mention to Bruce. If you are looking to kind of get a bit more defense, but maybe Mike James just makes, because he's so quick and because he does attack the basket, maybe that makes the Bucks play a little bit smaller and play into the Nets' hands a little bit. So I guess time will tell. That's it. Thanks again for your listening questions. We're going to look ahead to the schedule got released for games 2, 3, and 4. So as I say, we are about 2.5 hours from game 2 in Brooklyn. Then we head off to Milwaukee on Friday at half past midnight Friday morning UK time, and then we've got a UK friendly tip for game 4 on Sunday. It tips off at 8 p.m. which is a good one. I'm going to get you guys to do a really super early series prediction off the back of game 1. What do you think? How we're going to look after 4 games?
You go first.
Optimistically, I'd like to say 4-0. I think that obviously that is the best case scenario. I'd love for that to happen. I'll say 3-1. I can see us maybe dropping one of the games in Milwaukee. Wouldn't be too kind of saddened by that. I think you can kind of expect to drop a game here or there against these kind of top teams. You're competing against the top teams. if you lose 1 of 7 against them or whatever, I mean, yeah, you take those kind of odds every time they were offered to you. So yeah, hopefully 3-1. I'll say 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly touch on tonight's game, because I don't think we've talked about it enough, because I do think it's huge tonight. I think this is probably the biggest Nets game, certainly since I've started following the team anyway. I think a win would be massive, and it's certainly doable after what we saw the other night. And I think it's going to be an absolute dogfight tonight. I think there's going to be, probably make up for the other night where everyone was getting away with everything. I think you'll see plenty of elbows, technicals, tie-ups tonight. Which is going to be great fun. But I think I'd go as far as saying it's probably a must-win for both teams tonight. Just because obviously the boost of 2-0 for the Nets without Harden going to Milwaukee, and they'll have their heads down going into that, is massive. Whereas if they win and we go 1-1, and then going to Milwaukee with them having their momentum, everything to play for. So I don't know. I think if I was to look at it, like I said the other week that I said Nets in 6, and I'll probably stick with that at the moment. And I think it's probably down to the fact that I would say that I think the Nets will win tonight. I don't know why. I've just got a good feeling that they will win. And I'd love to see James Harden back for Game 3 on Friday. I think you just want to make sure we get back to Brooklyn next week with at least 3 wins, and we can be confident. So yeah, I'll say Nets in 6 just for now. But yeah, a lot of it is going to have to do with James Harden. It's unfortunate that we are kind of pressuring him a bit to get back, but we don't really have a choice, because Milwaukee are really, really good, and they probably played their worst game of the series, of the series the other night. So they're going to be much better tonight. But yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, following on from that, I think the whole thing has been the Bucks aren't going to miss that much from 3 2 games in a row. They were pretty pathetic from the 3-point line, because we were getting absolutely dominated with second chance points like we pretty much always do, which is super annoying. Brook Lopez seemed to have himself a game. If they start sinking threes, then we're going to have to get more and more chances at scoring buckets. So it's going to be a funny one. But yeah, I like you, Aiden. I share your optimism. But like you, Cammy, I don't know if I'm that optimistic about doing it too much. So I'm still undecided. I'm still going to say Nets in. I'm going to say Nets in 7, just so I'm different from you guys, because I honestly can't call this one. There's too much. Well, the sample size is too small after having just one game against this. But that's it. But we shall see. We'll know. In just a few hours. So yeah, really, really cool. But now it is time, as we have a quick little scene change for the Seafoam section, where we give you the lowdown on the New York Liberty. And in a quick weekly roundup, Thursday, the Liberty lost to the Las Vegas Aces. Unfortunately, Liberty came up against a bigger, more powerful team in the Aces, headed up by superstar Asia Wilson, who dropped 30, and Liz Cambage, who, if she can't back you down in the post, she can just turn around and pull a jumper up on you. One of the I almost said the Nets then. One of the Liberty's sharpshooters, Rebecca Allen, started to heat up in the second quarter. Sabrina Ionescu did her thing. No look, skip, bounce passes to the corner, free for an open Sammy Whitcomb, which was absolutely beautiful. But yeah, and then it was, I haven't actually got it in my notes because I did my notes too early this week. But there was also an absolute pasting from Connecticut. Cam, did you catch that one?
Probably best we just don't discuss this game at all and forget that it happened. This was obviously losing to the Aces. There's no real shame in that. Obviously, one of the kind of better teams in the league. I think they're sitting third at the moment, 7-3. So certainly not the kind of worst team to lose to. About 10 points difference in the kind of end score. So it's not the kind of end of the world. We were going to lose games kind of along the road at some point, and having started so well, you could expect to have a few losses. But yeah, the Connecticut Sun game was embarrassing. 64 points over 4 quarters. It just really wasn't the night for the Libs. Sabrina was very poor, but Niger was very poor. Neither of them really, I'm saying neither of them, just the whole team just really didn't perform to the level we've seen at points in the kind of, well, we've had about a quarter of the season, just over a quarter of the season now, had some fantastic performances, but tonight just wasn't that, unfortunately. But Nigel Laney, and a magnificent streak, I think it was about 20 points in 7 consecutive games or something like that, was ended. And yeah, it was just an all-round forgettable game, and it's also a week until we're next back in action. So some time to kind of rest, kind of, I was going to say rub salt in the wounds, that's not what I meant. Kind of like the opposite of that, and just kind of prepare, lick your wounds is the one I'm looking for. Yeah, definitely don't rub salt. That would definitely make things worse. I knew what I meant. So yeah, lick the wounds and just kind of get ready for the next lot of games. But yeah, there's also been some more positive news as well, aside from the 2 defeats since we last podded.
Yeah, just to go on from that, Cammy was talking about Nigel Laney and her fantastic start to the season. She was named as Eastern Conference Player of the Week last week, which is, I saw a stat actually that the Liberty have now won more weekly and monthly awards this season already, 9 games in, than the last 2 seasons combined. So that shows how well that they've started this year compared to the last couple of years. But yeah, I think the Nigel Laney's been incredible, and I think it could go down as the free agency move this summer as a season, because it was in February, wasn't it, in the WNBA. And I think bringing Laney in and Natasha Howard as well really kind of has moved the Liberty from rebuilding to not win now mode, but definitely in that playoffs category where they could be a real problem for the rest of the league. But yeah, last week she averaged 23 points, 4 rebounds and 7 assists. And yeah, just being incredible. And Cammy mentioned obviously that 20 plus points record, which obviously came to an end. But that's really great for someone who was only averaging 6 or 7 points a couple of seasons ago. Obviously won most improved player last season. But yeah, just really good to see her play so well. And obviously I think Sabrina won Player of the Week a couple of weeks ago, so already having 2 Player of the Week only a few weeks into the season shows how well the Liberty are playing. And yeah, long may that continue.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it? So from the most improved to our rookies, obviously the last year the Liberty were just made up of, I think they had 7 rookies on the roster, so they know a thing or two about rookies. But Michaela Onyenwere was the Rookie of the Month. So she was the 6th overall selection in the draft, and she's currently leading all rookies in points per game, minutes per game, total field goals made, and 3-pointers made. So yeah, she's shooting 44% from the field, 44% from 3, and basically 90% from the line. She also had a career best 29 points against the Atlanta Dream, which is the highest scoring game from any rookie this season. So it's pretty cut and dry. But I'll always remember, obviously, Onyenwere's WNBA career is quite short, but the thing I always think about was, I don't know if you guys seen it, but when she got drafted, she was having like a Zoom party with her whole family, and her gran was just like getting up and absolutely vibing when she got her name called. So that was really, really cool. So that's hopefully she's making Granny proud with her play there.
Is that potentially the New York Liberty's answer to Mr. Whammy?
That's it. Granny Whammy.
Precisely, that's it. So kind of rounded off the Liberty Lowdown Seafoam section, more good news, more awards. Walt Hopkins named Coach of the Month. And I mean, we're Liberty fans, we're not going to argue against that, but I don't think anyone can really argue against it. The Liberty were a team not expected to do much, obviously off the back of last season, 2 wins. Stellar start to the season so far, led us to a 5-2 start in the first month. Team's best start since 2007, and you also came up with a lovely, lovely little stat, Matt, that he is the first coach. This is the first Coach of the Month award in the franchise's second. The first one being with Bill Lambert in August 2017. So it's obviously great that a kind of rookie coach, in a sense, at the team anyway, is being recognised for the work he's doing with the team, who are also being recognised. And yeah, there's just a lot going well for the Libs at the moment. The kind of 2 recent losses aside, and long may the kind of success continue. We kind of touched on it last week that the team could finish in and around 20 wins, which would see them quite comfortably in the playoffs, I reckon. So yeah, hopefully we get back to winning ways next time we're in action. Fingers
crossed. And we've got, Natasha Howard, who sort of came in late because she was playing overseas and has now obviously exited the roster again with an injury. So hopefully she comes back soon, because she's an absolute defensive force. So yeah, hopefully that will tidy up some of the iffy bits on the other end of the floor. But yeah, really, really cool. Thanks for coming through. That's going to do us. I'm going to go and prepare for game 2 as the Nets hopefully take it to the Bucks. Yeah, if you're listening to this on a podcast, like, subscribe, follow, share with your mates, buy some merch, join the Discord, and just, enjoy Brooklyn basketball because it's absolutely where it's at. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.